Hello and welcome to Network Intelligence Optimization for Security Service Assurance. This is a panel discussion. We'll go through and take a look at what we're talking about today. So overall, our panelists will discuss emerging technologies and proven reference architecture designs that provide much needed agility, flexibility, and scalability. So IT organizations can build a scalable network, security, and forensics infrastructure environments that equally benefit both network operations and security operations. NetOps can thrive, achieve, and maintain 99.999%, while the security ops is empowered to design and deploy defense in depth and additional defense layers as needed with minimal network instrumentation in a proactive manner. The panel will also share best practices to help IT organizations proactively mitigate against known and unknown threats while optimizing and scaling security analytics and response agility. With that, we'll go through and introduce our panel. First, my name is Joe Onisick. I'm the founder of Define the Cloud, and I will be your moderator. We've got Tony, and Tony, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, Joe. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Zirnoon. I'm a Senior Director of Global Security Strategy at VSS, and I've been in the security industry for about 15 years. Different roles, but initially as a customer implementing security technologies and working in the operations, perform security assessments on various different verticals, and also been on the solution side doing competitive intelligence at companies like McAfee and ultimately at VSS, kind of trying to put all that together and see how can I best help come up with solutions that if I was in my other role, I would have benefited from. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. Next, we've got Jim. Jim, please introduce yourself.
Greetings, everyone. This is Jim Frey. I'm Vice President of Research at Enterprise Management Associates. I focus mostly on network management technologies, but have spent a lot of time straddling network and security management because there's such close alignment between the technologies. So we're going to talk today about the close sets of requirements between network operations and security operations, and that's a lot of what I focus on a regular basis. My background includes time spent with organizations such as Cabletron and the Spectrum Group, Micromuse, Agilent Technologies, and NetScout Systems for many years. And I've been in the analyst corps for the last 6 years, and a big piece of my time has been spent really focusing on the evolution of the use of packet-based visibility strategies and technologies, both for network operations and security operations. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. And Curt, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well.
Yes, hello. I'm Curt Schwaderer. I'm a Chief Software Architect at IP Fabrics. Got my start at E-Systems Raytheon in network engineering. Took a tour through implementing Network I/O for real-time operating systems. At IP Fabrics, we focused a lot on multi-core packet processing software, deep packet inspection, network intelligence software, and also networking and telecom analytics, which is what we're here to talk with you today about.
Thank you, Curt, and thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate that and your time this morning. Let's start off with our first question here. So we continue to hear about more targeted attacks, day zero exploits, multi-stage, multi-vendor attacks, some hidden event and encrypted tunnels getting past through network security defenses that often are misconfigured or overburdened with non-core functions. What are the new threats, and what should companies be prepared for? How does one protect against that which is unknown or hidden across a rapidly growing and elastic network?
Joe, did you want me to take a stab at that, or?
Please.
Sure. So as talking to customers, I mean, as you saw earlier on, so obviously malware attacks is one of the things that's top of mind. You still see a lot of DDoS attacks. The growth in the network, which makes it also challenging to see all the data that they need to see. But if you focus purely on the malware, it's no news that they're no longer just a script kiddie, right? These are multi-layer, multi-stage attacks, right? There's this whole conversation around kill chains, things coming in, which the payload seems to be very normal if you just do payload analysis, and you need to look at the entire flow, which means you have to see the beginning, middle, and end. This multi-staging is actually changes the game and makes the threats go from a known threat perspective, where you kind of knew how they're behaving or what comes first, what comes next, into an unknown threat behavior. As your environment, grows and is more elastic, you need to see the entire flow. And if you're having asymmetric routes or different attack vectors, then that also exacerbates the problem. Combining those two, what's happened is that, it used to be the day zero that we talk about, an exploit, would come in where there's a vulnerability that, is unknown. So, there's some 24-hour time around, they create exploit. Right now, when you look at actual compromise itself, there's data out there that says these guys are coming in and out in under 3 to 5 minutes in your environment. So this begs the question, how well are you monitoring your network? Can you continue to just sample or afford to not see every single, packet or flow that goes through your organization? And the other challenge is exactly that, how well can you monitor that, right? I mean, if you think about BYODs, if you think about all the other complexities in our network and, network infrastructure, whether it's virtualization, encapsulation, encryption, these are just some of the examples that are creating blind spots for many of the tools in the environment. So if you put all that together, it seems a very complex problem that is very rapidly growing.
Excellent. Any other thoughts from the panel on that? I guess you covered that quite well then. Thank you. So the next question we want to dig into is, considering that enterprise IT does not have much depth left to work with at its perimeters, is defense in depth strategy still a viable strategy to protect against these attacks? Does the same apply to the carrier networks?
I would say yes. I would say that there's some aspect of defense in depth that is very much valid, right? The whole idea of layering the technology, right? That you have different, best-in-class technologies in there. It's still very viable. The part that I think is challenging is where's the depth in our perimeter, whether it's enterprise or telcos, right? With telcos, you had the segmentation, from a switch, network, and now moving to LTE becomes a end-to-end IP infrastructure. So they're similarly going to be suffering from the same challenges that enterprises had on an IP network end-to-end. However, where you have in the enterprise, for instance, you have this, edge devices, your mobile, your tablets and whatnot, and it's almost like defense at the edge, if you will, right? So there's a contextual change, if you will, that happens. Jim, you may be able to comment a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to it and some thoughts that come to mind. Actually, it's interesting. I think there's interest in increasing and adding depth, especially leveraging inline active security technologies that have really become more required, more increasingly required, and increasingly needed to be an active part of the security strategy. Even though historically there's been concerns about viability, reliability, performance. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes here, I think. But in my view, that there's still considerable interest in restoring additional depth, and not just accepting the fact that there's less depth as inevitable.
Right, and that poses challenges that I think we've discussed in the past as well, right? I mean, this is the network guys trying to keep everything, up and running, the 5 nines that Joe was talking about earlier, right? I mean, that's what they're measured by, and if you try to add more layers, well, that becomes a challenge.
Agreed. Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So another question for you: how do others overcome challenges around deploying multiple layer security applications with existing network architecture and infrastructure?
I think, Jim, you were kind of alluding to that, right, earlier on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of angles to talk about this. I know, Tony, you have some thoughts about this sort of mix and contention between network ops and security ops. So that's probably a good place to start. And then let's talk about some of the research that I've been doing around technologies.
Sounds great. Yeah, I mean, Joe, what I had provided is kind of trying to look at the view of the operations. If you, I think, look at the slide, maybe we can take this and talk about it, right? On the left-hand side, you know, the view of these challenges is from a network ops perspective, right? So on one hand, you have these folks, you know, trying to keep up with the very rapidly growing speeds, right? The 1G, 10G, 40G, and now 100G. And each one of them comes with a mixed media and speeds, obviously, right? So they're just trying to keep up, right? And with that, as we talked about, the network itself, it's more complex, not flat. Earlier I talked about encapsulation, encryption, tags, whether it's, you know, in enterprise, you're dealing with like GRE tunnels or MPLS. And if you're in, you know, telco, you have different things like GTP and MPLS as well. So these are complexities that they have to deal with. As these things grow, apparently, for whatever reason, the span port or the mirror port access has not grown, right? You still have contentions around accessing this data, whether it's out-of-band or, as Jim was talking about earlier, is for the tools that need to go inline, right? It's a major problem. Every time you add a tool to go inline, it's another point of failure. It's another added tool with its own latency to the network. So network ops are not very happy about adding these tools, you know, inline, which means it makes it more difficult to add this defense in depth, if you will, one after another. And if you start using just purely aggregation and you're just aggregating things and send it upwards to like deep packet inspection tools, then one of the challenges that you have for accuracy, because you need to know where did you grab the packet from and what time exactly you grabbed that packet from. So layer 2 visibility is a challenge, and you must be able to see this everywhere, you know, across your network, whether it's a public, hybrid, private cloud, and, you know, mobility for that matter. So that's the network ops side. The security guys, the challenges that they have is that, you know, they're now forced to rip and replace their 1G tools as they go to 10G, or, you know, spend a lot of money because the 1G tool cannot keep up, whether it's because they need to do load balancing and the tools don't really do a good job inherently in dealing with supporting asymmetric routes or ability to load balance on a, you know, client source IP. For instance, if you're dealing with this new threats, unknown threats, you need to see the beginning, the middle, and end. You have to be able to ensure the same appliance or same sensors use the entire conversation regarding of the path. There's increase in security dollars, but there's not, you know, a huge amount. Still is challenging to find the right people with the entire, you know, with the right context that they need. And then these tools have to see all the data all the time, identify the source of the traffic as we talked about, and really find a way to add these tools in line without impacting the SLAs for the network ops. So they can see these attacks that we talked about, that they may be coming in from unmanaged devices, that you know, there may be hidden in traffic. So how do they solve this problem? You know, there's obviously different ways, right? There's ways you can trying to be, you know, change the flow of the traffic to try to achieve service chaining. They are looking at this new approach that we have been providing, like network packet brokering technology. Some people are, you know, working with open flow technologies to try to leverage that. So there are solutions. Each comes with their pluses and minuses.